What did you make of the comments around Brexit then? The government must be confident enough, it's got support for leaving the customs union to put that kind of reference to trade policy in the Queen's speech today.
Well, they have said again and again that they want to leave the customs union. I mean, they said that about the single market as well, but we know even the DUP in its manifesto to the Northern Irish people wants to leave the customs union, says it wants to leave the single market. I think the only interesting question to do with that is when do we do it? It's not clear that we will leave the day that we leave the European Union. Some people might think that it's more wise to go for a transition period of a few years to slowly disengage from the customs union.
So, but even if the DUP is on the same page as the Tories on this, and we don't know because we haven't seen any details of any supply confidence and supply arrangement that they've come to. So even if they are on the same page, that still leaves unresolved issues around the Irish border, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I think the model should be Norway-Sweden. Norway, of course, even though it's in the single market, isn't in the customs union, so it can have its own trade deals with the rest of the world. And that means that they do need to monitor goods travelling between Norway and Sweden, and indeed to Denmark as well. And they do that through very close cooperation through what's called a kind of digital border, where rather than checking every single truck that goes through, they do random checks. They monitor all the kind of goods that are going through and record who's going through. And if you are caught with something, you're punished quite severely. So that might be one model for making the Irish border work as well, but it would require a lot of cooperation with the Irish government.
And what are your expectations around the fiscal questions in the UK? Many on the Labour side point to the results of the election and say, well, this is a rejection of austerity. Even Philip Hammond over the weekend was saying, you know, we're not deaf to all of this and people are weary. He said yesterday people are weary from the hard slog of rebuilding the economy since the financial crisis. Do you sense anything? Did we hear anything today that made you think that we're going to step away from any of those commitments to balance the budget in the next decade?
Well, I'm a little bit cynical because I think they stepped away from those commitments about a year ago when they decided that we weren't going to end the deficit by 2020, we were going to end it by 2025. And given that the deficit is now less than 3%, which isn't that high, it's higher than we'd like, but it's not unusually high by international standards. And given a 10-year time frame for lowering that, I think the Tories long ago really stepped away from the idea of continuing and deepening austerity. Now, they are going to stick with, I think, probably a public sector pay freeze. They are going to stick with the welfare cap. So a lot of the things that people really feel, a lot of the actual impacts that austerity has on people's lives are going to stay there. But I don't think we should necessarily expect to see things like school cuts that had been planned in the past.